Hey folks, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Jim Adams and I'm the Vice President of Worldwide Sales here at Adlumin. And thanks for joining us for this version of the Adlumin Advantage Thought Leadership Webinar Series. This month, our title is What the Hack? How Adlumin's UEBA Stops Intruders. Just as a little setup for what we're going to be speaking about today. So cyber threats are happening daily. And if you're above the curve, you might have security devices in place to ensure your safety. But what happens if hackers can work around those devices and successfully hack your organization? What you would know and what to do next is what we're going to cover today. So in this webinar, Adlumin's Director of Data Science, Jeet Dutta, walks us through how Adlumin's User and Entity Behavior Analytics, UEBA, helps stop intruders before they can get into your network. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jeet to our session today. Jeet, welcome.
Hi, Jim.
So let me just start off, Jeet, just very quickly. Can you just summarize what Adlumin's approach to network security is?
Sure. Adlumin takes a holistic approach to network security. We incorporate information from many different sources to detect security issues. The terminology that applies most accurately is XDR, the extended detection and response system is what we have. And I'll say that there are three pillars to our approach. The pillar number one is the fact that the Adlumin network security platform is cloud native. So born in and designed for the cloud. So all the security related data that we get from our clients is ingested into our cloud. And we have a serverless architecture that can then scale up on demand and process that data. And it's a huge, a very high volume of data, billions of records every day. But thanks to this architecture that we have pieced together using cloud services, we are able to provide this service at a reasonable cost to our clients. And then the second pillar I'll mention is our machine learning application. So you can think of this as a machine learning layer that lies in between the raw data and what we deliver to our clients. So without a filter like this, like it's just not feasible to manually track these this vast amount of information and detect threats in a timely manner. The machine learning layer, though, can sift through the data in real time, and it can return a much more target-rich set of security logs or process data that a security team at our client can effectively deal with. So these are useful leads. These are the signal to noise ratio is a whole lot boosted so that a security team at any of our clients they'll just be a lot more effective in dealing with this information. And then finally, the third pillar that I'll mention is that the Adlumin platform is just endlessly adaptable. So we want to customize solutions for our clients based on their needs. And what we should appreciate is that the risk, the nature of the risk, the nature of the security threat is going to vary a little bit or even quite a bit from domain to domain, but the Adlumin platform is robust to those differences.
So cloud native, machine learning, serverless architecture, perfect. So another question, so UEBA, User and Entity Behavior Analytics, has really emerged as the leading paradigm for applying machine learning in this field. Can you give us an introduction to UEBA and describe how it fits within Adlumin's approach?
UEBA is indeed at the core of how we design the data science and machine learning layer that I mentioned. So, and machine learning is really how you implement UEBA. To give a simple definition or description of what encompasses UEBA, the idea is that you rely on past behavior. So that's where the behavior analytics part comes in. And so behavior of who's doing the behaving here. So it's a user at any network or any organization. So all users, but even network devices are included. You can think of them as users. And so users and network devices are the entities whose behavior is being monitored. And under UEBA, the approach to security is a behavioral one. And so what other alternatives exist? So you could contrast a behavior-based approach to a rules-based one is the other main paradigm. And an example of a rules-based detection principle or approach is, let's say that you wrote a rule to alert every time a machine or a network device is accessed by a user who's never done so before. The problem is that you're likely to get a lot of false positives, and you're also going to miss other signals that may be present in the data. But relying on UEBA, it's all behavior based. So what you do is you baseline each user and each entity on a network. And so they can be machine entities like a router or a firewall device, or they can even be characteristics of those devices, like an IP address. And so you design a machine learning algorithm that quote unquote learns what type of behavior you might expect from each entity. And then you flag deviations from that expected behavior. So given these principles of UEBA, our machine learning models, that's pretty much what they do. They baseline not just a single user or a single machine, but in fact, each unique combination of user, machine, time of day, day of week, etc. So, and then each combination, each such combination can be treated as a unique entity by itself. And so what's to appreciate here is that the algorithm that you write has to be sufficiently advanced to take into account this complexity. The baselining has to happen at this level of complexity. You cannot gloss over it. And then one final thing to note here is that the importance of data. The more data, the more examples or instances that your algorithm encounters over time, the better it's going to be at mapping this behavior of any entity. And the better you map it, the more easily you're going to be able to identify when something abnormal is going on.
It's baselining behaviors for users, devices, and accounts, and it's looking for anomalous behaviors and actions to detect. So what are some of the examples of UEBA in action within the Adlumin platform?
I can start with a relatively simple use case. We have a model for baselining file sharing activity within a network. Attackers are often after these resources that reside in shared drives. And what goes on, like benign normal activity on shared drives, is just too numerous again. And without using a machine learning approach, there's just no way to effectively baseline the behavior of different users. And so that's, again, the approach that our model takes. And you can compare what our model does to taking a snapshot of any user's file sharing activity. Let's say over a single day, you take a snapshot for that day. And then over time, you're going to accumulate hundreds or even thousands of these snapshots that capture what type of shared drive resources this user tends to access. And also you can track how this picture, how these snapshots are changing or evolving over time. And that's really critical to throwing a detection, because if there is on a given day, if the snapshot suddenly starts to look very different than what this user's baseline is, and then and again, it's the algorithm itself that's going to determine that, okay, a little bit change is fine, but if the change is too abrupt or too big, then it throws an alert. And that indicates that this user has suddenly switched their file sharing behavior way too much. Another example is our lateral movement detection. And you can think of this one as a more complex implementation of this same snapshot idea. Lateral movement, you can define lateral movement as, these are really harmful and insidious attacks, by the way, where an attacker gains a foothold within a network, and then they go from machine to machine, they steal credentials and they deepen their access, and they're kind of lying low. They are biding their time, and at some point they're going to launch an attack. So our approach here is to, again, develop a series of pictures over time of the pattern of access that a given user has. So, and the more complete that picture is, the more information you incorporate from different sources to map that pattern of access, the better that baseline will be. And remember that the attacker is only pretending to be a certain user. So they will likely deviate from what that user normally does. And you're not going to be able to fool the algorithm for too long, is the idea. And one other UEBA implementation I'll mention is our ransomware detection. Ransomware is pretty well known at this point because of some major incidents that happened over the past year. A one-line definition is when an attacker starts to encrypt or delete files and data on a network. And so what ends up is you essentially lose access to files that are of critical importance to keep the business running. So the lateral movement model that I described before, you can think of that as a preventive. But if lateral movement goes undetected for too long, it can mushroom into a ransomware situation. So our ransomware algorithm baselines these file write and delete events. And the trick here is to seek or to find a deep enough representation of these events. And that means looking at how these events are distributed across different directories, different locations, different systems. And if you represent it right, then you can identify an abnormal spike in such activity, file writes, deletes, and you can raise the alarm almost immediately after an attack occurs. And that'll definitely be more advantageous than finding out much later.
So thank you, Jeet. UEBA clearly is a powerful tool for our partners and our customers to help in the protection of their networks. It uses the machine algorithms and machine learning to be able to identify anomalous behaviors and actions. So thank you very much for that great description and that overview. And folks, we hope you enjoyed this session and be on the lookout for our next Advantage Thought Leadership session. Thank you and be safe.